to worst films of the year so far. And I will lead this one off. For me, the two worst films of the year so far, one is Jupiter Ascending. Oh my God. That movie's me and Schnepp and Dennis. This was our famous doubleheader. Me, Schnepp, and Dennis were hanging out one night and we went and did a double. What was it? We did Jupiter
Seventh Son.
Seventh Son
and then
Jupiter
Ascending.
We did a doubleheader one night.
Fantastic.
Schnepp just kept laughing at me because as we're watching Jupiter Ascending, I was like rocking in the fetal position. I was like, oh my
holding
God,
his
I
head.
was like pulling my hair. I'm like, this is so awful. How can you make anything this bad? Well, they came up with an answer to that question and they made the transporter refueled, which is, yeah. Now, actually, I was starting to talk about the transporter refueled the other day on Movie Talk, but then after we shot the show, we realized the review embargo had not yet been lifted, so we had to edit it out of the show. But since the review embargo is now lifted, just the day that the movie's actually opening, which should tell you something, we thought we would share what my thoughts on the transporter refueled were the other day. So here, take a look at this.
He loved it.
And I can tell you, it is the worst movie I've seen probably in the last 2 years.
Oh, dear.
Like, no,
Damn.
it's not a bad movie. It's the worst movie. It's the worst movie.
Worse than City of Bones?
It's worse than City of Bones.
Wow.
This might be the worst movie I've seen in like 2 years. This movie is horrible from start to finish. I remember one of the first things I said coming out of it was, it felt like a movie that was being made by guys in a movie. You know what I mean? Like when you're watching a movie and it's got a bunch of actors and producers in the movie and say, oh, we're going to shoot this movie. And it's some hammy kind of whatever thing. That's what the transporter refueled is.
It's like Simple Jack in Tropic Thunder.
It's like all the villains, you think they're being dubbed, but they're not. All the villains, they talk like this. I'll get the drugs. Where's my money? You know, like everything. Like they're all like these Eastern European, whatever. How do you pronounce Ed's last name? Screen? Nobody really knows.
Skeen, maybe?
Now, you may recognize Ed as he was Darren or Doran in...
Dario?
What was his name in Game of Thrones, Dennis? Dario, whatever, in Game of Thrones, he was that warrior that Khaleesi started sleeping with. And that then he had the long hair and narrow face, and then all of a sudden this past season, he had short hair and a big beard and a completely different actor. But anyway, the reason he left Game of Thrones was to go and do the Transporter movie so he could be a movie star. Chalk this one up to one of the worst career decisions in the history of Hollywood. And he's awful in it. It's not just that he's not Jason Statham. He's bad in the film. There's almost nothing redeemable about this movie other than 4 brief glimpses of moments. Ray Stevenson as the father, who you learn is like a former British secret agent. Of course he was.
Cool.
So that's cool. But, and I know that I'm going into spoiler territory here, but I don't care. So if you really don't want to know anything about the transporter, maybe fast forward a bit. They did something in this movie that I couldn't believe was actually happening. So first of all, you meet the dad and whatever, and you're thinking, yeah, at some point he's so predictable. The dad's going to get kidnapped at some point, be used for leverage. Sure enough, as Ashley mentioned in the synopsis of the film, he does get kidnapped by the girls, right? So the girl's like, if you want to see your father alive again, you better do these things. Okay, so they kidnap the dad. And eventually they start working with the girls. You can tell that in the trailer. They start working with the girls. So what do? A little later in the film, the dad gets kidnapped again! Again! Twice in the same movie! This time by the other bad guys. We have your father. If you want to see him alive, you better do something. It's like, really? You're doing this twice in the same movie? I cannot believe how effing amateur this movie is. It's so bad it makes me angry. There is nothing redeemable other than brief moments of Ray Stevenson seducing the 2 hot young chicks and getting them both in bed. Other than that, nothing redeemable about this movie at all.
Talk about the flashback scene where they're getting out of the van, and then they show them getting out of the... Talk about this.
Right near the beginning, once again, this is not a spoiler, it's right in the opening couple of minutes of the movie. So it's like 12 years ago. It's supposed to be like this scene in New Orleans, and there's a couple of black pimps and a couple of prostitutes on the street, and these 3 SUVs pull up, and these European guys in black leather jackets just step out of the van and shoot them all. And so they leave one guy alive, goes, "You go tell all your friends that we run the prostitution ring here now." So they let him go. And then they bring out their own prostitutes, right? Now, it's like 12 years later, and there's another scene with these same European thug guys. Now it's 12 years later. They're all rich. They're sitting around in some kind of club, whatever. And even though we just saw them like 3 minutes ago, every time the camera goes on one of the guys, it goes and does a flashback to what we just saw 3 minutes ago. It's like, see, this is the guy who got out of the van. And then the camera goes to the next guy in the club. See, this was him who got out after him in the van. And they did that for every single person sitting in the room. And like Wendy kept looking up at me, and I'm like, what am I watching?
See,
it's
terrible. When you explain, like John explained this to me at least last week when he saw it, because he was livid. And I was like, tell me more. And this when he was explaining this to me for some like weird like horror sadistic reason, I was like, wow, now I want to see the movie because it just sounds so bad.
It's almost, you almost have to see the movie.
It's hard to even imagine. Like that's why I was like, please describe that scene again, because I wanted to hear him say it again. It's almost unbelievable that actually happens. I almost have to see. Did they really do that? Like literally the scene after, do a flashback scene of the scene that
it's
they
within
just showed?
a couple of few minutes, just a few minutes later.
I mean, I'm looking at my Hitman refueled or whatever, the transporter. Like, I want to see Ray Stevenson in the movie, right? And it's, he's a British secret agent. He gets kidnapped twice, and he sleeps with the girls who kidnapped him. He's burning a lot of calories in this film. That's impressive to me.
But anyway, so I don't recommend. If we're just going a simple of recommend or don't recommend, I'm going to go with a do not recommend unless you are morbidly curious, in which case you might want to see this to say that you saw it. So clearly I did not like Transporter. Honestly, it is probably, I think, the worst film in the past 3 or 4 years.
Wow.
Like I thought it was that bad. Wow. But anyway, so for me, Transporter Refueled and Jupiter Ascending. Christian, what about you? Worst 2 films of the year so far?
That movie's horrible. But I'll give you the honorable mentions quick. The honorable mentions would be Hitman, the one you just mentioned, Transporter, Vacation, Pixels, Chappie, Lazarus Effect, Hot Tub Time Machine 2, Seventh Son, Jupiter Ascending. But my 2 stinkers that are up there, and and The Loft is in there as well. My 2 stinkers.
I can tell what's going to be in there by what wasn't on your honorable mentions.
Yes. The 2 that are in there are, one is Mordecai. That was brutal to watch. Very, very tough. I just, the stupid poster alone, I knew what I was getting myself into, so that's why I wasn't really a disappointment.
And maybe the biggest box office bomb of the year.
Well,
when you actually calculate how much money
We
it
Are
lost.
Your Friends. And that's in there
but
too.
But Mordecai costs so much more to make than We Are Your Friends.
That's true.
It might end up costing the studio more money.
True.
Yeah.
But yeah, We Are Your Friends is in my top 2, but it's in there as well too. But Mordecai was just, it was such. There's no reason for that movie. It had no audience to go after, and that's why it stunk the way it did. Hot Pursuit. My God, what a flying turd. It is so bad to watch what Reese Witherspoon just did in Wild and then come back to do this thing, which is just offensive to everyone. Mark Ellis wanted to go out and take a number 2 right in the middle of it, and he did. It's really bad. But the last thing I'll say about The Loft, by the way, is Wentworth Miller should be arrested for that performance. Like, it was so bad. Someone should have just looked and go, "Hey, you, get out of here," because it's like he's not even trying. So that movie, all those movies are horrible.
Man, now I'm thinking more about The Loft. I was so excited for
know,
that
it's
movie.
terrible.
I thought everything just sounded so cool about it. Ashley, what about you? What would you say are your worst films we've seen this year?
I've got one on my list, 50 Shades of Grey.
Ooh.
I think I was excited for this film just because there's so much hype over it. And as a woman, like, yes, we always see boobs in films, but I was like, yes, we're finally going to see some schlong in this. Like, not only did we not get schlong, we didn't get schlong, we didn't even get story. Like, I was just so let down by this.
You're not going to give us schlong. At least give us story.
At least give us story. There was neither. What?
I'm just saying, you open yourself up to, we're finally getting schlong memes. You've opened yourself up.
Finally.
Schnapp, for you, the worst of the year.
My 2, I mean, you listed off a bunch of doozies, which I could easily replace, and but I'm not going to sub out any of mine. Insurgent.
Oh,
I literally wanted to leave the theater, and I was seeing it for free.
And it was a free theater.
It was free.
You saw it.
I could have just gone outside and drank. And then after the movie, I was like, why didn't I just go outside and drink? Bad film. It's just, but that's obviously that film. I didn't see the first one, so I
I
didn't
remember
have.
because you and Dennis tried to talk me into going into the theater
I
with
know.
you. I'm like, I'm good, guys. I'm just gonna go back to the
saw that in
hotel.
Atlanta, right?
Yeah,
we saw it in Atlanta.
Man, what a
Yuck.
And then Terminator Genisys. For me, it's not on my like disappointing list because I just thought it was a bad film. It was badly directed. It was badly put together. I was like, where was the script continuity person? Was Alan Taylor like out to lunch, not directing scenes where it's like you have a countdown, it's 4 minutes to save the world, and people are just walking and talking about it. I don't know if we're gonna get together and create the future John Connor.
Does this shirt make me look fat?
It's kind of embarrassing. And it's
that was
like,
Jack Courtney.
I know everyone's talking about like, oh, it made money in China. Maybe
Between
they'll make a
takes.
sequel. They should not make a sequel to this film. So that's how I feel about it.